The Sports Lounge is brought to you by the Sportsbook at WaterView Casino in Vicksburg, giving you the edge in sports betting.
Welcome into the Sports Lounge, hosted by WaterView Sports Book and Casino. I'm in a toasty Sports Lounge for our first episode, March Madness edition. I'm Jon Wiener, alongside my guy Ray Coleman. And Ray, excited to have you here, and it's an exciting week to kick things off and tip things off, I should say, and welcome people into the Sports Lounge.
It's a good time of the year, man. We got so much going on from March Madness. We got the NFL draft coming up, right? So we can talk a little free agency. We got the big golf tournaments, if you will, that are going to start ramping up right now. So plenty of good things to talk about, man, and plenty of Mississippi ties to all of that.
We got a lot of good stuff coming up, so we're glad you're here with us in the Sports Lounge. And Ray, of course, the big story this week, Mississippi State and Ole Miss both in the dance for the first time since 2002. Before we get into the matchups, I mean, it's remarkable that really both of these teams are here because it's been a long time. So just your takeaway when you look at both of these teams and kind of what it means for them to be here.
So the first thing I think of is Mississippi State being in the tournament for the first time since 08, 09. I guess you can say Ben Howland, the work that he's put in with this program is starting to pay off, right? Yeah. That's the first thing I think. When I think on the Ole Miss side, though, the first thing that comes to my mind, I think I read something like only the fourth time in 109 seasons that they've been to the tournament. Ouch, Andy Kennedy. Yeah. Because he was there that whole time and had all that good talent come in, and that's all we get to show for it on him. I know he's gone, but I had to drop that nugget. What Coach Kermit has done, man, is unbelievable up in Oxford. For him to be there his first year to win his own accolade for Coach of the Year, I think it speaks volumes of what he's building up there with the Rebels.
Well, me too. I think it was now or never, for Ben Howland and Mississippi State. I mean, you kind of had two different programs where no expectations for Kermit Davis and Ole Miss, and it's kind of a Cinderella run of sorts before March. I mean, they're playing with house money a little bit, to use the expression, and, that's all well and good for Ole Miss, and it's a huge credit to that kind of, like we said, Cinderella story. But for Mississippi State, you were already kind of a year behind in the Ben Howland era in terms of year 4 and having not been to the tournament, and you got one of the great players to ever play now at Mississippi State in Q Weatherspoon, and Lamar Peters, the talent that he had. So when you look at kind of where these teams are, it was almost on Mississippi State. You had it's now or never in terms of getting this thing going with Ben Howland and Kermit Davis on the other side. I mean, surpassing expectations in every way. You look at the matchup and the seed for these teams. How far can they go in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I'm always scary when it comes to the 5 versus 12, right? Yeah. That's what Mississippi State is sitting in right now, going up against Liberty.
You like Liberty in this game, don't you?
It's not. I'll put it like this. Liberty is putting together their best run in program history. I think they had like 28 wins. That's a record. 4 consecutive winning seasons. That's a record at Liberty. That shows that their program is on the uptick. You get what I mean? Whereas Mississippi State is in the tournament, and that's awesome, right? But I think we've also seen the inconsistency that they bring night in and night out. You never know which Mississippi State team you're going to get. Now, that's 2 different conferences. We understand Mississippi State plays in a power conference, so maybe that reigns supreme. But, man, we're talking about San Jose, California. These guys are going to be in different time zones, playing at a different tip time. So I'm just not sure how those young men are gonna perform under those kind of circumstances.
Yeah, and then you look at Ole Miss. I mean, 8-9, you feel like it's a toss-up against Oklahoma. I think Ole Miss is a 2-point favorite. We'll have Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is later on in the show, brought to you by WaterView. I think we'll make some cold, hard picks for some cold, hard cash on that one. But, Ole Miss with that 1 seed Virginia sitting in the second round. I'll be surprised if either of these teams makes it out of the opening weekend. But, you give each of them a fighting chance.
I think Ole Miss has the better swing, though, because they're playing in Columbia, South Carolina, where the travel time is not that big of a difference, right?
Sure.
I think that the fact that Coach Kermit has come in and helped these guys understand that they have the tools to be a really good team. In their first year in the NCAA tournament, they got all SEC performers. I think that they can come in an 8-9 matchup where it's really a toss-up as far as who's the better team. I think they can make it happen against the Oklahoma Sooners.
Yeah, and we got Romero Osby coming up later on in the show to really weigh in on that.
NFL free agency, man. Look, we're going to talk about the Saints. Obviously, that's the hometown team when you're talking about Mississippi. But a lot of big moves, man, in the NFL when it comes to free agency. Outside of the Saints, what was the biggest move that kind of stood out to you?
I think it's Odell Beckham to the Browns. For one, the spotlight and the stardom that Odell Beckham Jr. has. I mean, you got Antonio Brown going to the Raiders and OBJ going to the Browns, right, as sort of your 2 big wide receiver moves. I think both what Beckham brings to your team single-handedly, like Antonio Brown. I won't say he's a system wide receiver. That's a dumb thing to say, but Odell Beckham in terms of like one guy who can change your offense. I think he's that. And it's just big to me, Ray, because it feels like the Browns are really coming with everything that they added.
Question.
And in a way that Antonio Brown goes to the Raiders and you say, yeah, okay, but what else? You look at the Browns with that young defense and Baker at quarterback, and you say, hey, this could be a team now all of a sudden we have to account for. So I think Beckham makes the biggest impact with the Browns, league-wide.
One more before we get to the Saints. You know what kind of stood out to me with the Le'Veon Bell deal, him sitting out a year? I expected more in a deal because the whole point was he wanted to sit out and be paid like the biggest skill player in the game.
Yeah.
And it turned out, in my opinion, it felt like he just wasted a year of money. And, as a running back, you don't have a lot of years to begin with. And you sign with the Jets.
It's kind of his point in the whole contract negotiation.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And social media always comes back to rear its ugly head. I ran across a tweet, old player tweets.
There's a tweet for everything.
It's a tweet for everything. Where somebody asked him, what would it take for you to come run with the Jets? 60 million? He was like, nah, 60 million is not enough. I think he ended up signing for like 50 million, right?
60 million is enough for me to run with anybody, dude.
Anybody.
I'll go run with Spurriers, Buccaneers back in the day.
No doubt.
Know what I mean for that.
But with the Saints, though, it was a lot of move and free agents leaving. And y'all picking up some quality players, man. Kind of talk me through that.
I think it's a big loss for the Saints when you take them all in totality, right? You lose Mark Ingram, okay, we got another running back.
Sure.
You lose Ben Watson, okay, Breeze has been fine with tight ends. You lose Max Unger, well, they have other pieces on the offensive line. But in totality, the Saints were on offense, I think, Ray, more than anybody in the entire football league. And I'm not a big believer in this all the time, in that kind of abstract stuff, locker room character. It's about having the best players on the field. But I think if anybody in their offense, Sean Payton has proved what kind of knowing the system, veteran leadership, the intangible things that made Ben Watson and Max Unger such huge parts of the Saints. I think any one guy, you say the Saints can recover it, but you worry about the identity that they lose as an offense with three key veteran guys in big-time positions. And I'm a big Mark Ingram fan.
Sure.
You can say what you want about Alvin Kamara and how he needs the ball more. That's the best backfield in the league the last 2 years in terms of touches, touchdowns, yards per attempt. I think all of them are big losses for the Saints, but in totality, especially coming back and having to get up off the mat again with what they did, I worry about them offensively, and there's another year for number 9.
But I will say this, that Max Unger move with him retiring kind of worries me for the Saints, simply because Drew Brees only has a limited amount of time left. And Max Unger, maybe he was a little long in the tooth, but this guy knew how to set alignments when it came to blocking and picking up blitz schemes and things like that. So I think we undervalue that portion of what Max Unger brought to the franchise.
Started 62 out of 64 games for them.
I mean, all it is consistency. You know what I mean? And I think if you ask Drew Brees, who did he hate to see leave in the free agent market? Got to be Max Unger.
I think that's a great call in terms of how you sum that up with Unger. And just keep in mind real quick, and I've been very vocal about this, when the Saints traded Jimmy Graham for a center, a lot of people said, oh, how are you going to give up Jimmy Graham? That was a win for the Saints in every way. And you look at what Unger has done to solidify that offensive line. And it was a surprise for the Saints. You knew Ingram was leaving. You knew Ben Watson was probably out of there. Unger says, I'm done.
Yeah.
They didn't have a contingency plan for that. And looking at the NBA playoffs, Ray, I've been watching a lot more of your Saturday night ABC games and your midweek games as the NBA starts to really get into that final stretch run. And it's amazing when you look at, like taking the Eastern Conference, how wide open it is, but also how intriguing it is. We talked about Joel Embiid a little bit on our pop-up podcast, which you can see on BashBrothersMedia.com, but just who's the most intriguing team in the East for you?
So in the Eastern Conference, man, I look at it like this. The 76ers are the most intriguing team. My worry with them is that they're far too inconsistent. Now, if you're just talking about on paper, they got what it takes.
That's a theme for you this week is inconsistency. But you like showing up, punching the clock.
But it is what it is. They have the talent to beat the Warriors.
Yeah.
In all seriousness. Philly.
They do. That's not
right
crazy.
Now, J.J. Redick, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, man, you name it. Jimmy Butler. They got the guys right now that can line up with Golden State and say.
And Tobias has been great for them,
And Tobias has been great as well. My worry is they're here one day, they're down the next. You know what I mean? When you think of the Celtics, they're not going to do anything. Kyrie Irving has wrecked that team, and at the end of the day, they're not going to win until he leaves and goes, to New York where he thinks the media's going to
You're not winning with Kyrie unless LeBron's on the team.
Boom. There it is. The Milwaukee
Hot
Bucks.
take in the sports lounge.
The Milwaukee Bucks have been the most consistent team with the best player in the league, if you ask me. But at the end of the day, I don't know if they're truly there yet. I just think they've been running the regular season. You know what I mean? But I don't know what that means in the postseason.
That's the team for me, though, is Milwaukee because of those two things that you talk about. For one, we've seen Giannis Antetokounmpo in the playoffs. I mean, first of all, buddy had 52 the other night. But last time he was on a big stage against Boston, they really neutralized Antetokounmpo, and I thought kind of exposed the Greek Freak's weaknesses in the half court. So I think he, in some ways, is like the player to watch in the Eastern Conference to see if he can become that Kevin Durant type. I'm just going to shoot my team to the finals and take them there. But also, I think Milwaukee's a little slept on. Just because you got Philly, you got Boston, you got the big teams with the big names in the East, and of course Toronto up there with, Kawhi Leonard and what went into that at the start of the season. But I think it's Milwaukee because I think they're a little underrated, frankly. I think playoff basketball will favor them in some ways, but also it's all eyes on Giannis. Like you said, he's the best player in the league.
He is.
He's not.
Wow.
He's not.
Okay.
Giannis is not the best player.
So who is?
Well, over a Kevin Durant, over an Anthony Davis. I mean,
Anthony Davis?
I think Giannis may be. So that's what I'm talking about. This playoff series is going to be, I think, the time for Giannis to take that step where people like me won't say, you're crazy. Because the one thing where you stop with Giannis compared to a Steph Curry, a LeBron James, a Kevin Durant, is, and probably 3-4 other guys in there. A Kawhi Leonard who's already been there to the playoffs. I don't hate the Kevin Durant pick, by the way. I just hate Kevin Durant, so that's why I'm not giving him. That's why I'm not giving him anything. Like he's got that out there.
You're right.
That's part of what is at stake, I think, for Giannis. Like for him to make that leap into actual NBA superstar icon. I'm not maybe top 10. I'm top 3.
That's right.
You got to do it in the playoffs. Real quick on the Players Championship, I know that I might have been locked into it a little more than you are, but you said, hey, look, I took in the Players Championship on Sunday.
I did. So you know my stance. I am a casual fan when it comes to golf, so I'm going to always watch the majors, but I do consider the Players Championship as that 5th major simply because it brings out the big names, and it just feels like a bigger tournament. So I may not watch all of the golf tournament, but the Players Championship, it brought out some major feels, if you will, including the way Rory played. Man, I was really impressed at the way that he just came through and for sure, dominated. You know what I mean? And I think it gives them good rhythm as we move into the Masters.
Yeah, I watched it like a major, and I think that's the best thing to say. I recorded it on Sunday, made sure I came back and watched it. The majors typically bring the best field and the best competition, and that's what it was about for me. A great run for Rory, but it was a great weekend for the players. Speaking of watching majors, we're glad you're watching us and with us here in the Sports Lounge. We got a cool segment coming up next. We're going to have our Table for Two NCAA Tournament Edition. Now, we're going to have multiple people wanting to sit at the table, Ray, but we can only welcome 2 in the Sports Lounge. Hey, we encourage you also to make sure you share the show, retweet the show, however you're watching it on your platforms. We want to get the word out, and you share it, you can win some cool stuff from WaterView Casino as well. Of course, the Sports Lounge, driven and hosted by WaterView Casino in Vicksburg. We'll be back.
You are in the Sports Lounge. Follow us online at Bash Brothers Media and share, like, and follow the show to enter to win a one-night stay for 2 at WaterView.
You are hanging out in the Sports Lounge. John Wiener, Ray Coleman. NCAA tournament talk coming up, but before we do, John, you got your own kind of NCAA tournament bracket going on, right?
Yeah, we've had some fun with this one at Bash Brothers Media. Ray, Mississippi is a state that's second to none when it comes to our people, whether it's athletes, activists, entertainers, writers. It's part of the reason we created this whole Bash Brothers Media and why we brought you into the Sports Lounge, Mississippi's home for sports. So we ranked all the greatest Mississippians ever. Yeah. Not just sports, anyone.
Regardless.
Put them in a bracket for everyone to vote on in March Madness. And it's become really popular already, which we're excited. And a lot of people have, their different takes. I mean, a quick example, our number 1 seeds, William Faulkner, Elvis Presley, B.B. King, Oprah Winfrey, and you just go from there. The hardest part was who to leave out. It shows you how great this state is. But you can go to bashbrothersmedia.com/thehard drive. Actually go directly to our Twitter page, which may be how you came into the Sports Lounge in the first place, at Bash Bros Media, and it's all there. I encourage you to vote each week, and it is driven by WaterView Sports Book and Casino. So, Ray, we're giving away a big package for that one as well. If you share or retweet the post, you get a enter to win a one-night stay for two and dinner for two over at WaterView in Vicksburg. So it's an exciting time. It's a lot of fun. We were excited about it.
Your bracket may be tougher than the NCAA tournament bracket because you got James Meredith, a 3 seed?
Meredith's a 3 seed.
So a civil rights activist, right? Just looking to integrate the University of Mississippi
I know.
is a 3 seed. That's the kind of feedback he's getting on social media.
Well, and we had people like in this lounge specifically right here who were irate that Tennessee Williams could be a 7 seed. And Ray, we've gotten pushed back on like John Grisham being an 8 seed. And so, throughout the board, but that's what makes it fun.
It is. But you know what? I'll take that bracket over this bracket any day because the competition is way more stiff.
It is.
In the Bash Brothers bracket than it is, in my opinion, in the NCAA tournament bracket.
So talk to me about the competition for Mississippi State and Ole Miss in this. And I want to start with Mississippi State in that 5 seed in the 12 matchup against Liberty. Typically a matchup that you see a lot of upsets in the NCAA tournament. But what are they looking at?
And you know how I feel, man, about the 5 versus the 12. Liberty is a good team. They've been putting together a winning season for the last 4 years. I think they have 28 wins this season, which again is a program best. So they're going to come in and they're going to have the expectation of winning. Now, what that means when they're supposed to be playing against a superior talent, we'll see. But again, I'm not really high on that, man, because I'm still saying you don't know what Mississippi State squad you're going to get. You could get the one that has 4 and 5 stars on it and that will play like it and blow Liberty out of the water. Or you can get the squad that'll let Liberty hang in it. And at this time of year, those are the games in the 5-12 matchup that end up being one shining moment.
I think Ole Miss has a tough draw against Oklahoma. I really do, because Oklahoma is one of the most experienced teams in the NCAA. They got 3 senior guards. Lon Kruger's a pretty darn good coach when you look at what he's done with that program, especially taking them over in big-time sanctions and stuff. Yeah. And I think Ole Miss, honestly, was a little overrated and overseeded all season. Like, they didn't really beat anybody who mattered, and Oklahoma is a team that, like, they're a real basketball team. And, it's interesting. It's a 2-point spread, and it's an 8-9 matchup, but Oklahoma seems like the tougher team in that bracket. So I thought that Ole Miss kind of got a benefit of the doubt in some ways as a 9 seed. And, again, a team that, didn't finish strong, lost in the SEC tournament pretty early. So I thought they got the benefit of the doubt as a 9 seed, but may have gotten a tough draw against Oklahoma.
It's a toss-up. It really is. But you made the comment earlier. They really are playing with house money because if they aren't expected to be as good as, we say they are not, then that's just going to let it hang loose, in my opinion. With Coach Kermit Davis, man, they're going to come in and expect to win, but maybe not have as much pressure, being that, they say, hey, it's a free trip to Columbia, South Carolina. We're just going to go ahead and have a good time. Sometimes those teams really do play well in the postseason because they're just playing loose.
Well, I think the key for Ole Miss, especially against that senior backcourt of Oklahoma, and we know what matters in March Madness. Again, we got Romero Osby coming up in your show in about 5 minutes, played in 2 different NCAA tournaments, one with Mississippi State, one with Oklahoma. But I think Bree and Tyree is a huge key for Ole Miss. They can only go as far and really win some games if he plays well. And so, speaking of Bree and Tyree, it's a good transition into our segment here on the Sports Lounge, and it's a new segment because it's a new show, first show, and we're glad you're in here in the Sports Lounge. And again, we're hosted and driven by WaterView Sports Book and Casino in Vicksburg. It's real simple. We got a table for 2 here. We're going to get 3 contestants, topics, entities, whatever they are, and we can only keep 2.
Somebody's got to go.
Somebody's got to go, and it's exclusive categories and communities here. No, a company is the word that I was looking for here in the Sports Lounge. So we'll toss it to our guy, Insider Joe Simeone. Joe, what you got?
All right, first up to sit at your table, Mississippi guards. Breann Tyree, Lamar Peters, or Q Weatherspoon?
Do I get to go first?
Sure.
Lamar Peters can go. We're talking about one of the greatest players in Mississippi State history, and Breann Tyree, who is taking his team to the NCAA tournament as a leader, as the guy. So if you ask me who's got to go, it's Lamar Peters.
I'm going to go total opposite here. And I want Lamar Peters at my table. Okay. And I want Tyson Carter at my table. I don't want Q or I don't want Tyree, who are the best guards in Mississippi. Okay. But I want a guy who's like, look, if I want to go to the tournament, I don't want to win 1 game. Okay. I don't want to win 2 games. Okay. It's either like make a run or it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I want to make history. Okay. And Peters is the guy who gives you a chance if he's hot. If you win in the first round, you win in the second round for Mississippi State, no one cares.
I'm not mad at that.
No one remembers. But if State can be make any kind of like deep Cinderella run, it's got to be Lamar Peters who's driving the show. And Tyson Carter, I just expect him to have a big tournament. If Mississippi State goes forward, it's going to be because Tyree, Weatherspoon, Peters, they're all kind of inconsistent when it comes to shooting the basketball. Give me the guy who can shoot the strings off of the net. So I'm actually, believe it or not, gonna yank one guy over there that's not even in the lounge right now.
You got your own reservations.
But no, man, I want to go with the guys who give me a shot for glory, man. Like you can keep your, steady, like consistency.
And Lamar Peters is a guy that'll say, look, go give me a bucket in those tough times. 2 minutes left. He is a guy that can go one-on-one. So I'm not mad at that pick at all. What else you got, man?
All right, next up we got the NCAA coaches, Tom Izzo, Mike Krzyzewski, and John Calipari.
I want you to go first on this one.
So I'm going to go with Tom Izzo and John Calipari. Okay. And I know that people will raise their eyebrows.
Like me right now.
Calipari, but I think Calipari just doesn't get the credit for how good of an in-game coach that he can be and how good he is in the tournament.
Now, hold on, opposite sides.
Go ahead. This is a guy who took UMass to the Final Four.
That was like 1985.
Go ahead. To the Final Four. This is a guy who won it at Kentucky and has taken Kentucky there multiple times. Go back to when they were an 8 seed and they were struggling to put it together and they had that team of freshmen that he couldn't. And then all of a sudden, you saw how good Calipari was and they went all the way to the Final Four as an 8 seed. And I think when I think of Duke early on, I need to go back to the early 90s and maybe I'll get my coach K respect. But how many times have we seen Duke bounce by a more athletic team, a more aggressive team? And I think Coach K, look, now this is a tough call here. It's only a tough call. It's really but I'm actually going to go with Tom Izzo and Coach Cal.
Okay, respect first and foremost.
I would hope so.
So Anthony Davis, won the title with Coach K, right?
Sure.
He's had Karl Anthony Towns, all right?
He's had the best.
He's had the best players every year, one title. Meanwhile, we're talking about Coach K, whom I'm not even a Duke fan. If you ask me what I root for, Duke or against, it's probably against. But you can't take away him being one of the one or two greatest coaches of all time. And then with Tom Izzo, it's just you know what you're going to get, man. He may not win it every year, but his team will probably be either in the Final Four or in the Elite Eight. It's just every year.
When they get bounced in the first round by Kermit Davis in Middle Tennessee. They kind of poked that Izzo bubble.
But every time I think of Calipari, I just think of a guy that's like, we give him way too much props, man, because he's clean cut, with the suit, the tailor-made, Italiano type of guy, you know what I mean? But he's not that good of a coach, and that's why I say we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, man. He does a great job of bringing in guys to play 1 year and go to the NBA. And yes, he may teach them things to help them get ready for the NBA. When we're talking about winning college games, man, he's a decent coach, man.
You act like Krzyzewski's done it with a
bunch
of
JUCO
guys and NAIA kids. I mean, you only won your titles with your Grant Hills and Christian Leitners of the world. Yeah. What else you got, Joe?
And not taking Coach K's madness, but that's why they call it March Madness.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Let's get next. March Madness
I
shots.
like Cal. Go ahead. Yeah.
March Madness shots. Michael Jordan, Mario Chalmers, and Chris Jenkins.
Wow.
So these are really like maybe the 3 most memorable shots. I don't know if they are. I mean, I could pull Bryce Drew, and bring him into the lounge. But what do you got here?
So, dude, these are 3. I mean, no matter which 2 of the 3 you pick, I'm going to say yes. Jordan, because I'll never go against Jordan. I'll never go against Michael Jordan. Yeah. But the shot that Chris Jenkins hit to beat North Carolina, just from the way they drew it up to the moment, the time expired, the look Kenny Smith had on his face, watching it, and then Chuck jumping out of his seat.
Was great.
Do all of that, and that was one of the really good, creative yet memorable shots of all time. I'll just leave out Mario Chalmers simply because those 2 just have unique memories in my mind. Mario Chalmers' shot was huge, but those 2 kind of stand out to me.
And see, it's the opposite for me because obviously you have to go with Michael Jordan. What's funny with the Jordan thing is he hit it with 18 seconds to go. It's people think, he hit the buzzer beater. It was far from a buzzer beater.
No doubt.
You see you hear about the shot growing up, and then you see the highlights, and it's like, wait, I thought this was a game winner. It's 19 seconds to go in the game. But obviously you put Jordan in there just because of where it stands, and it was a game winner, to put them ahead to beat that great Georgetown team. But I'm gonna include Mario Chalmers, and I'm gonna leave Chris Jenkins shout out for this reason. And it comes down to a personal lens. I was at that game.
Oh, nice.
I was at that championship game, or when Chalmers hit the shot to beat Memphis, and again, a Calipari coach Memphis team. That was an era. It seemed to me when college basketball was a little bigger. Yeah. When you had Derrick Rose and Kevin Love and Tyler Hansborough and that, I mean, that Final Four with all the 4 number 1 seeds was, to me, I just remembered that as like a bigger era in college basketball,
sure.
and the Chalmers shot just seemed to like matter a little more. I was like, how are you going to leave Chris Jenkins out? Like it was a true buzzer beater to win the national championship. Doubt. But for me, in terms of the way that they resonated, I think it's Michael Jordan and Mario Chalmers.
And buzzer beaters are so tough, man, simply because, like you said, the memory that you have of being there that plays on you real heavy. And we could go down the list. Like you said, Bryce Drew, how could we leave that one out?
Yeah.
You know, the moments that you have personally when you see those highlights that go back in the day, that's what makes it special. That's why I said you can't have a wrong answer on this one.
Yeah. What you got, ISO?
All right, next up, power conferences, ACC, Big Ten, and SEC.
Who you want at the table? I don't want the SEC, so I guess
I don't
have
need
to go with the Big
Ten
and the ACC.
And it's, well, I guess it is a shot at the SEC, but you got to pick two. Those two conferences, they specialize in playing really good basketball. The SEC has good teams. They have some good players, but you can go up and down the board in the Big Ten and the ACC, man. You're just going to find week in and week out, you can't pick the favorite regardless of the ranking. So that's why I think I would say pick those two over the SEC.
Yeah, I'm with you also.
Yeah. See, that's easy. That's how you do it. If we agree, just,
Yeah, just move on.
Okay. All right.
Next up, March fan traditions, bracket pools, Thursday day off, and alternate brackets.
Do you get to take a Thursday day off? Is that how it works? I've never been able to do that.
Apparently, this tradition exists out there. I'm gonna go with Thursday off day because that sounds pretty good.
Amazing, right?
I didn't realize it was a tradition. I'm gonna go Thursday off day and alternate brackets. I mean, we just made an alternate bracket this year. It's a great one. Mississippi's greatest. Check it out at Bash Bros Media on Twitter. But I'm over bracket pools, man. Yeah. I'm so over them. It's kind of like fantasy football. It's like bracket pools are getting to the point where you go watch a game and all anyone talks about is like the bracket that they picked and the team that they had. And like, it's cool for a while, but that thing has kind of burst for me a little bit, man. It's like I'm not into it like I used to be.
You know, I used to be deep into the brackets. Let me tell you when I got out of the bracket life. I still do them, by the way, but let me tell you when I stopped investing in the bracket
life.
Yeah, bracket life for life.
Yeah, exactly.
When my wife made a bracket that was better than mine.
And
she does not watch any college basketball. So that let me know that I'm putting way too much time into something that I can just literally sit down 3 seconds and do, and turn out with a better record had if I studied it for 3 months. That's why the bracket pool is kind of overrated to me.
I think that's probably me also. The same reason why fantasy football, because I just lost every year. I'm just terrible at it.
You lose to your wife, it kind of puts things into perspective.
I might feel differently if I was constantly, hanging trophies. But yeah, I don't know about the bracket pool. Hey, speaking of hanging trophies, and speaking of someone who knows about the NCAA bracket as well as anybody, he played for Mississippi State as a freshman in the NCAA tournament, was all Big 12, first team all Big 12 at Oklahoma, played in the tournament, NBA draft pick by the Orlando Magic, Romero Osby, Mississippi's own, is going to join us next in the Sports Lounge to break down the NCAA tournament. Stay with us. You're in the Sports Lounge, Mississippi's home for sports. We're hosted and driven by WaterView Sports Book and Casino in Vicksburg. And joining us in the Sports Lounge via the phones is a former All Big 12 selection, played in the NCAA tournament with Mississippi State, Northeast Lauderdale product, NBA draft pick, Romero Osby. And Romero, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming into the Sports Lounge.
Man, I just want to tell you guys I appreciate you all having me. Enjoying listening to you guys. I enjoyed working with you last week, John, on the at the Mississippi State tournament, and I'm just excited to be on the air with you guys. I appreciate it.
Well, Romero, it's a good convergence for us, obviously, to talk about your NCAA tournament experience, but you kind of have a squad in all 3 games in some ways, with Mississippi State taking on Liberty and then the Rebels and your old Oklahoma Sooners where you were all Big 12. But just generally, take us inside, the mindset of a player. I mean, what is the experience like, especially for like these Ole Miss kids, really, and the Mississippi State kids playing in the NCAA tournament for the first time?
Well, I guess when you get to the NCAA tournament, a famous quote by an actor, it just got real, because you're basically all season long you're talking about, I want to make it to the tournament. I want to make it to the tournament. And then you finally get there and you see the bright lights. You see the NCAA blue and white logo in the middle of the floor. You look around and you see fans from different places, and then you see your opponent on the other end who also has been dreaming to get there. It's really an exciting experience, but it's also an experience that must be taken seriously, because it's a huge game. Every game is huge in the NCAA tournament, obviously.
Romero, Let me ask you this. I've been talking about Mississippi State, having to go play in San Jose, California, how that may throw off their rhythm. They have to play so far away from home, the timing to be off with the time change. Am I putting too much stock in that, or is that something that can be real when we're talking about preparing for a big-time game?
A big-time game, you always want to be a little comfortable. You want to kind of try to stay in your time zone as possible. But I tell you this, those young men have an experienced coaching staff. Ben Howland obviously coached on the West Coast for a while, so he's going to do everything he possibly can to make sure those guys are prepared as it pertains to rest, their eating habits, how he practices them this week. So I'm not too much worried about it. Those kids, when I watch Mississippi State play, when they play with energy and they play with intensity, they already have the talent across the board. They're going to be a hard team to beat in the NCAA tournament. So I don't see that playing a huge factor. And another thing, if any of these guys plan to play professionally, whether it's overseas or in the NBA, they better get used to playing a different time zone on different days.
Romero, I want to ask you about Lamar Peters specifically on that team because we know what kind of talent that he is and, frankly, how streaky he's been, and depending on whether he's shooting the basketball or a pass-first guy, just what do you expect from Lamar Peters in this tournament for the Bulldogs?
Well, for the NCAA tournament, the point guard position obviously is huge. He's their leading assist man at 5.2 assists a game. He shoots 38% from the three-point line right now, but I know he's been kind of up and down. If he can consistently get his teammates involved and make open shots as well as create off the dribble for himself, they're going to be a tough team. I really think that with his speed, he should be a factor in the NCAA tournament. But a lot of times, transition obviously comes from defensive stops. So they're really going to have to buckle down defensively so they can get him out of transition.
And so for Ole Miss in general, do you feel like they're maybe playing with house money, their first year in the tournament under first-year head coach Kermit Davis? Do you feel like they can play a little bit looser than other teams that are in the tournament, that have been there a couple of years? Do you feel like Ole Miss can play with less of a chip on their shoulder?
Yeah, absolutely. Kermit Davis does a good job. He actually recruited me when I was transferring from Mississippi State, and he was at Middle Tennessee State. And he was one of the top three schools that I was thinking about. It was Kansas State, Oklahoma, and then surprisingly Middle Tennessee State. And the only reason that I even gave Middle Tennessee State even thought was the fact that Kermit Davis was there, because he's the type of coach that he gets his players and he maximizes players' talent. Now you put him at a place like Ole Miss, which is obviously in the SEC. Very talented players. They got Brian Tyree. They got Terrence Davis. Devontae Shuler. They really got some talent, especially from the guard position. So I don't think that they're going to be uptight. I honestly think that they're going to just go out there and just play as hard as they possibly can. And with a coach like Kermit Davis behind you, who's a player's coach, it's going to be tough to beat them.
And, Ray, that's one of the biggest endorsements I've ever heard about Kermit Davis Jr. as a head coach, that Romero, who was leaving a Power 5 school in Mississippi State and had Power 5s in front of him, said Middle Tennessee was in the consideration because of Kermit Davis Jr. So, Romero, you actually ended up at Oklahoma, and what a great career you had at Oklahoma, and, that worked out so well for you. And you know Lon Kruger well, and it's Lon Kruger's Oklahoma Sooners against Kermit and Ole Miss. What can you tell us about this Oklahoma team that stands out to you?
What stands out to me to this team, and it's typical Coach Kruger's team, is that he has good guard play. But not only that, the fact that his four-man, Christian Doolittle, I think he plays him at the 5 sometimes, but he's really a small forward four-man. And then Brady Manick is a good three-point shooting four-man. He does the typical thing of doing a lot of pick and pop, a lot of isolation. When you watch Coach Kruger's team play, they do a lot of defensive sets. I remember when we didn't do a lot of complicated sets. We did a lot of misdirection, pick and pop, pick and roll, down screens and things like that. The players are constantly moving. If Oklahoma can shoot the ball well, which is their MO, if they can really go out there and knock down open shots, and Brady Manick and Christian James can knock down threes, they're going to be able to give Ole Miss a run for their money. The only thing that scares me about Oklahoma is defensively, if they can continue to keep the defense intensity, which I know they work on in practice because I've been coached by Coach Kruger. But I'm hoping that they can at least come out and show some defensive intensity, because, in my opinion, the SEC was the top league in the nation this year, which you don't always hear about the SEC being the top league in basketball. But I really think that they were the top league just because the amount of intensity and the amount of pressure behind every single game. And that's not going to scare Ole Miss. They're going to be ready to play. So Oklahoma's going to have to take the fight to them.
And Romero, before we let you go, just kind of looking nationally at the bracket, and I want to ask you about kind of Zion Williams specifically and Duke. And somebody had a good question today. I think it was a Le Batard show. They said if Zion Williamson was on Gardner-Webb, would they be a Final Four contender? But how much of a difference does one player, one star player, make in this tournament? I mean, we saw Carmelo Anthony took Syracuse to a national championship. We saw Kevin Durant for Texas get bounced really early on. How do you see it, Romero, in terms of like star power in March?
Well, honestly, star power definitely makes a difference in March, especially when a player can get a roll going. You know, when you look at Zion Williamson, I think they won 3 games in a row to win the ACC tournament. He got MVP. It's kind of, to me, looking like what Kemba Walker did, I believe, in 2010 or 2011. I can't remember the same year. You remember Kemba Walker? They won the Big East championship, and then they ran off 6 straight games to win the NCAA championship. And that's kind of the same path I see Duke going down right now. And I don't, from looking at their bracket, besides Mississippi State, who I'm hoping to meet them in the Sweet 16, I don't see many teams that are going to be able to challenge. I mean, maybe a Michigan State down the road in the Elite Eight, but honestly, I really think this Duke team is going to be a very, very hard team to beat. And let me just say this: Zion Williamson is just a freak of nature. I mean, it's not even just the athleticism; it's the basketball instincts that he has. Getting out in the passing lane, the block shots, rebounds above the rim. People don't realize dunk and hot line plays bring energy and momentum to teams. You know, and he doesn't have to step out and shoot threes, but he can make the occasional open three. He can make the free throw from the free throw line, so you really don't want to put him there either. That's just what he brings to the team, along with the other star talent that they have from those freshmen. I really think Duke is going to be a tough team to beat, and having star power and a star power like Zion Williamson is definitely going to help him.
Northeast Lauderdale's own played in the NCAA tournament as a freshman, Mississippi State, all Big 12 at Oklahoma, drafted by the Orlando Magic. And our first guest in our opening edition of the Sports Lounge, Romero Osby. Romero, great stuff. It's a pleasure. We thank you for stopping in, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, thank you, guys.
Romero Osby on the March Madness seedings and the games for Mississippi State and Ole Miss. And Ray, what a treat. And I really want to go back to what Romero said about Kermit Davis Jr. What an endorsement. Sometimes, you don't know which way a conversation is going to go, but what Romero said about Kermit Davis Jr. I thought was as good of an endorsement as I've heard.
I mean, that's a personal account of showing you what a coach can do to influence a young man, to show him not only what he can provide for him, but what he will be buying into once he gets there. And it's real, you know what I mean? It's the reason why Kermit Davis is showing up in Oxford and turned that program around in 1 year, because the proof is in the pudding. He's shown up with those young men. He's put some high demands on them. You know, they got to work hard and they got to buy into the system, but they're reaping the benefits now. In year 1, they're playing in the NCAA tournament. You heard Romero say it, that it's a dream until it's a reality when you get there.
Loved it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And here they are living the dream right now. Now they're going to face a real reality. They're going to face a reality when they face the Oklahoma Sooners. But wow, man, to show what Coach Kermit Davis has done with that program, I think Romero put it in great perspective, man, to say, the hard work, it shows up when you're under the brightest of lights, which is the NCAA tournament.
Well, we enjoyed having Romero in the Sports Lounge. We're glad you're in the Sports Lounge. You know what I don't enjoy is losing big games. And so one of the things we're going to do on the Sports Lounge every week is play a game right here in the Sports Lounge.
And we've done it a couple of times, off camera.
They didn't have to know that.
Well, I had to make sure that they know that, right? I had to make sure that they know that, because at the end of the day, they don't want to just feel like, okay, what are we buying into right now? They have to know the backstory.
Okay, well, the backstory is that it hasn't been the best go of it for me in game time here in the Sports Lounge. So in our first official public edition of the Sports Lounge, NCAA March Madness edition, we're rolling out Pop-A-Shot, and I'm just letting you know, I'm going to make it rain this time.
You may perform better when the lights are the brightest.
That's right.
Kind of like how Romero said.
Right, exactly.
You're living the dream, but you're about to face a reality, though.
Just show me clutch time, winning time, game time, coming up next in the Sports Lounge.
You are in the Sports Lounge, the place for sports in the Magnolia State. Follow us online at Bash Brothers Media and share, like, and follow the show to enter to win a one-night stay for 2 at WaterView.
Time for the good stuff here in the Sports Lounge. Every week, Ray and I will face off in a game. We'll call it game time. Pop a shot in honor of March Madness, and it's all about shooting the basketball here in March. So we're going to put 30 seconds on the clock. Yeah. I should really be spotted about 8 or 10 points, but I'm feeling it today. I think I got the range and the rhythm, and it's March, man. It's winning time, so I'm going to show up. So we're going to have 30 seconds. You know the deal. Most points wins. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, yeah, I'm already making it rain, and now I messed it up again. Man, it rimmed out. I was doing so much better because I'm telling you, man, I'm coming strong. It's a new ball game. Uh-oh, Johnny learned how to shoot. Remember that Happy learned how to putt? Yeah. Oh, you shouldn't have let me figure it out, man. I'm telling you. You're not even saying anything, just a silent assassin over there. This is going to be legitimately close. That last one is down. What you got, big boy?
What you got, man?
28-30.
Let's go, man. Let's go, man. I never take an L, man. Never take an L. Listen, I was working with one ball.
I think we could find a way to contest one of those shots.
I was working with one ball. I actually stopped shooting. I actually stopped shooting.
Have to go off the board.
2 off of yours. I actually stopped shooting with 2 seconds left on the clock.
Ball. So but can we talk about it was a good ball game. That's what we wanted.
It was a good ball game. You had some good coaching from the crowd. You know what I mean?
But I leaned on my staff.
But you got a good Kermit Davis in the crowd who helped you make the adjustment. That's the important thing.
And Ben Howland just coaching. He just brought talent in.
He just told me to go get a bucket. At the end of the day, though, it proved that you do shine when the lights are bright.
It was close. Join us and see what happens next week. The best part about game, it's not just Pop a Shot. We got all kinds of cool stuff in the Sports Lounge to play each week. It's game time on the Sports Lounge.
Closing things out here in the Sports Lounge, but before we do, got a few last orders of business. One is we got to give you the final score from the Pop a Shot. Joe, what we got, man?
First official game went like every other game. Ray up 30.
Why do we got to keep dragging up this history
28.
that's not even really a part of the official legend?
Well, it is because people need to know how much work we've been putting in to make this show look good. That's the first thing.
I hope we didn't put in too much work because we still got something to do.
But the point is, we've been doing this. And I will say this, testament to you, right? When the lights came on, my man put on a show. You really did. You upped your game, and respect to you on that, right?
But it's a loss just the same.
We'll
keep the tally every week.
We will. We have to because at the end of the day, winners win.
Hey, he got a little coaching from me there.
Well, and you know what? That's the Kermit Davis and you. And that's I guess that's
you may not get another W all season, so enjoy it while it lasts.
Y'all know he said this for like 3-4 weeks now.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that because
see me on the track.
He did. He made me take my game to another level, man. So we'll drop that. We'll drop that, but just know, the challenge is always willing to be accepted by the champ.
We got a lot more to put on the ledger.
Yeah, we got more coming too.
Yeah.
And so let's get to this. Let's put your money where your mouth is. What you guys got?
I'll go first, if you don't mind. I'll go first.
This is what, one pick each week here, Joe?
This is one pick. The one thing, whether you're a betting man or woman, or whether you just want to, call your shot, kind of how I did in Pop a Shot, right? At the end of the day, 5 versus 12. I know what Romero said, but I'm gonna give you double. I'm gonna say MSU versus Liberty. That's an L for MSU.
So you're taking Liberty outright in that basketball game.
No question. And, again, I'm not a gambling man for the folks at home, but y'all have been educating me on how that works. And what did we say they were at the time? I think they were, what, +7?
Yeah, so State's like a 7.5 point
I take that, too.
Yeah.
Why not? I take that, too. And I'll give you another one. I know Auburn's red hot right now, but I'm going to give a shout-out to Sean Buchanan, the Madison Central product. New Mexico State's going to take them down in the 5-12 matchup, too.
So you like Liberty and New Mexico State as 12s over 2 SEC teams.
No question.
In the 5 spot.
Respect to Romero. I do value his opinion because God knows he knows it better than I when it comes to basketball. But at the end of the day, I just really feel like Mississippi State and Auburn are a little bit overrated, and I'm not really sure they're gonna put it together. So.
You're falling back on that, I think, 12 seed 5. But look, it always happens.
That's why they play the game.
It always happens. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm going to put on for the SEC.
Okay.
And put your money where your mouth is. Kentucky, first round game, -22 against Abilene Christian. Yeah. They're going to double that. Kentucky is going to beat Abilene Christian so bad the parking lot will be full by the time the game tips off. Like, it will be over that quickly. Kentucky only 22 against Abilene Christian. Give me the Cats. Give me the points. That thing's going to be at least double that. Like, that's what I mean. People don't have respect for my man, Coach Cal. They are going to boat race Abilene Christian. 22, it's not even going to be close. Put your money where your mouth is. Kentucky minus 22. Book it.
Man.
Take it to WaterView Sports Book. I'm ready, man.
I'm sorry. I feel that.
I know I'm really strong on Kentucky and Abilene Christian in the first round, but that's why they give you the spread, man. It's like, you know.
I'm learning day in and day out, man, the value of a point spread. At the end of the day, if you were to tell me to take these games straight up, I pick them the same way. I don't even know what the point spread is in New Mexico State and Auburn, quite honestly. I really don't. But on a straight up game, I'll take New Mexico State because Auburn's always been overrated when it comes to basketball.
The team that just won the SEC tournament.
No question. They had to be Coach Calipari. They're so great.
Yeah.
They're so great. The Tennessee, they're so great. The Mississippi State, they're so dude, it's a watered down league.
Yeah.
Respect to you and Romero.
And interesting to hear Romero say that he thought the SEC was the strongest basketball conference this year because of the intensity of the games and the athletes on the defensive end.
He's the man, but on this one, I'm just going to have to go the other way.
Well, we appreciate Romero Osby certainly for joining us in the Sports Lounge. That was a lot of fun. And appreciate you for joining us in the Sports Lounge. Now, there's a lot of fun and cool Mississippi content and more on Bash Brothers Media this week. You can follow us on Twitter at Bash Bros Media. Make sure you vote in our Mississippi's Greatest March Madness Bracket contest. Check us out on the hard drive, bashbrothersmedia.com/the hard drive. We're going to have all kinds of cool NCAA tournament content. Well, we do have it already for you this week. Just click on it and head right over. And especially, even though you squeaked past me in Papa Shot, it's a pleasure having Ray Coleman in the Sports Lounge always. Enjoy March Madness and the NCAA tournament. Make sure you check out WaterView Sports Book and Casino just in Vicksburg, Mississippi's #1 place for sports betting and really all your state and play action. And make sure you join us back in the Sports Lounge next week.